It is an autumn evening in 1967, and a man in a suit is standing on a street in Washington. He is a chief petty officer in the United States Navy. He is 30 years old. He is deep in debt, and his marriage is falling apart. He walks up to the front gate of the Soviet embassy. He goes inside. He tells the Soviets that he works in Navy communications. He tells them he can get them the keys to America's naval codes, and he offers to sell them for cash on a regular basis. The Soviets can barely believe their luck, because the man standing in front of them is not offering a single secret. He is offering them the ability to read the United States Navy, message by message, for years. His name is John Anthony Walker, and he is about to run the most damaging spy ring in American history. He will do it for almost 18 years. He will pull his best friend into it. He will pull his brother into it. And he will pull his own son into it. They will call it the family business. And the only person who finally stops it will be the wife he threw away. To understand the damage, you have to understand what John Walker was selling. Navy messages were encrypted by machines. To read them, you needed the machine, and you needed the key. The key was a setting, changed regularly, that scrambled every message. Without the key, an intercepted message was meaningless noise. With the key, it was an open book. John Walker worked in the very heart of Navy communications. He served aboard nuclear submarines. He handled the codes himself. Security around him was astonishingly weak. He later bragged that a discount store had better security than the Navy. Nobody was watching the man who guarded the keys, and so, month after month, he simply copied the keys. He photographed the key lists with a small camera. He passed the rolls of film to his Soviet handlers. And in Moscow, the Soviets began to read the United States Navy. Not one message. Over the years, more than 1 million of them, they learned how American submarines hid. They learned Navy tactics and readiness. They learned the locations of the underwater microphones that tracked Soviet submarines. The Soviets built an entire facility in Moscow just to handle what Walker gave them. They codenamed him Agent Number 1. They made him an honorary admiral. A KGB station chief later said, "We knew everything," and Walker was paid handsomely for it. Over the years, the Soviets paid him more than $1 million. There is a darker theory about just how valuable he was. In 1968, North Korea seized an American spy ship, the USS Pueblo. On board were the Navy's cipher machines. Some historians believe the ship was taken on Soviet request. Taken so that Moscow would have the machine to match the keys Walker was selling. A machine and its keys in the same hands. That is the difference between intercepting noise and reading everything. But there was a problem building for John Walker. In the early 1970s, the Navy moved him to a desk job. He lost his direct access to the codes. The river of secrets was about to run dry. So Walker did something a careful spy would never do. He decided to recruit other people to steal for him. His first target was a friend from the Navy, a quiet, mild-mannered radio man named Jerry Whitworth. Whitworth had access to exactly the codes Walker had lost. Walker did not tell him it was for the Soviet Union. He softened it. He told him the secrets were going to a Western ally, not to Moscow. He made treason sound almost reasonable. And for the money? Whitworth agreed. For years, Whitworth photographed cipher manuals and key lists. He did it in the back of a van in a parking lot near his work. The Soviets paid for the van. Whitworth handed everything to Walker, and Walker passed it on to Moscow, taking his cut. Whitworth became the single most productive source in the ring. He gave up the keys to almost every major American code machine, and for years, he never knew for certain who was really reading them. In 1976, John Walker retired from the Navy. He opened a private detective agency, but he did not stop spying. He simply reached deeper into the people around him. His brother, Arthur, was a retired Navy officer. Arthur worked for a defense contractor. Arthur owed his brother money. John pressed him, and Arthur gave way. He began passing his brother documents from his defense job. Then John Walker did the thing that is hardest to understand. He recruited his own son. Michael Walker was barely out of his teens. He had just joined the Navy. He was assigned to an aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. He worked in the ship's administrative office. Classified documents passed across his desk every day. His father told him it was easy money, and Michael began stealing. He did not use a camera. He simply took the documents themselves. He stuffed them into bags and boxes and hid them. Over time, Michael Walker stole more than 1,500 classified documents, weapons systems, nuclear weapons control procedures, contingency target lists. A young man handing his father the secrets of an aircraft carrier. Because his father asked him to, Michael was not a believer in anything. He was a young man who wanted to please his father and wanted the money. He even handed over ordinary things, like copies of the ship's newspaper, to bulk out the pile. He did not fully grasp what he had become. His father did, and used him anyway. There was one person John Walker could not control: his ex-wife Barbara. Their marriage had ended years earlier. It had been an unhappy, damaged marriage. And Barbara knew his secret. She had known for years. Early on, John had sometimes taken her with him to clear the dead drop sites. She had watched him leave packages in the woods for the Soviets. She had lived with it, in silence, for a long time. Walker had once even asked the Soviets to eliminate her. She was the one loose thread in his whole operation. And he had left her alive, and angry, and knowing everything. But two things finally pushed her to act. The first was that John kept trying to recruit their daughter. Their daughter Laura was in the army. John wanted her to spy too. Laura refused. And when she refused, her father threatened the people she loved. The second was simpler. John had stopped paying Barbara the money he owed her. So in November of 1984, Barbara Walker picked up the telephone. She called the FBI. And here is the part that almost let John Walker escape. The FBI office that took the call did not take her seriously. They thought she was a bitter, drinking ex-wife, trying to hurt her husband. They filed her report away, and for months, nothing happened. The most damaging spy in American history was reported to the FBI. And the FBI almost let the file gather dust. Then, during a routine check of old inactive files, a supervisor found the report again. He read it, and this time, someone decided it might be true. The FBI opened an investigation and gave it a code name. They called it Wind Flyer because Walker was a licensed pilot. They interviewed Barbara again, and this time they listened. They interviewed the daughter, Laura, who confirmed everything. Both women passed lie detector tests. The FBI put John Walker under surveillance. They tapped his phones, and in May of 1985, they heard him prepare for a trip. He drove out toward the Maryland countryside, and the FBI watched him do something strange. He drove in circles. He made U-turns and doubled back. He was checking for anyone following him. He did not see them. Then he stopped by a quiet road and left a grocery bag beside a telephone pole. Inside the bag were 129 classified documents. It was a dead drop for his Soviet handler. The FBI recovered the bag. And in the early hours, they arrested John Walker in a motel. The family business was over. What came next tore the family apart in public. Michael Walker was arrested aboard the USS Nimitz. Investigators found a footlocker full of stolen documents in his possession. He had to be escorted off the ship under guard. The sailors and Marines aboard wanted to get at him. Brother Arthur was arrested in Virginia. Jerry Whitworth, the friend, was arrested in California. And John Walker, the father, made a deal. He agreed to confess everything and testify against his friend Whitworth. In exchange, his son Michael would receive a lighter sentence. It was the one decent thing he did, and even that was a bargain. John Walker was sentenced to life in prison. His brother Arthur was sentenced to life. Jerry Whitworth was sentenced to 365 years. His son Michael was sentenced to 25 years. Barbara, the wife who turned him in, was never charged. She had known for years and lived with it, and finally ended it. Years later, she said something haunting. She said that if she had known her son Michael was involved, she might never have called at all. She had turned in her husband, not knowing she was also turning in her child. The full damage of the Walker spy ring is almost impossible to measure. For nearly 18 years, the Soviet Union could read the United States Navy. Some believe the Soviets arranged the seizure of an American ship just to capture a matching code machine. With the machine and Walker's keys together, the Navy would have had no secrets at all in a war. A senior officer said no punishment could ever match the damage. And it had all been sold. Not for a cause, but for money. John Walker did not betray his country for an idea. He did it for cash. And he pulled his family down with him. His friend, his brother, and his own son all went to prison because of him. The Soviets called him the greatest spy they ever had. It was a defecting KGB colonel who revealed just how deep the damage went. His name was Vitaly Yurchenko. He told the Americans that thanks to Walker, the Soviets had decoded more than 1 million messages. He called it the greatest case in the history of the KGB. And in the end, he was stopped by the one person he had wronged the most and trusted the least. The wife who picked up the phone